Marcus Chen had always been the guy nobody noticed. In high school, he sat in the back corner, invisible. In college, his engineering professors barely remembered his name. At his dead-end job fixing broken electronics in a cramped repair shop, even his boss forgot he existed most days. At 28, Marcus had accepted his fate as background noise in other people's lives. That changed the day the sky split open. The massive ship descended like a metal mountain, casting shadows across the entire city. Panic erupted in the streets as smaller craft detached from the mothership, landing with thunderous crashes in parks, parking lots, and anywhere flat enough to hold them. Marcus watched from his shop window as tall, elegant beings emerged from the nearest vessel. The aliens stood nearly 8 feet tall, with smooth purple skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Their movements were graceful, almost dance-like, but their weapons were unmistakably real. Within hours, every government on Earth had surrendered. The invasion was over before it truly began. The beings called themselves the Zephyrians, and their leader was Queen Lyra Lai, a stunning figure whose presence commanded absolute attention. She appeared on every screen worldwide, her voice melodic yet carrying an undertone of iron authority. The translation devices her people used made her words perfectly clear in every language. "People of Earth," she announced, "you are now subjects of the Zephyrian Collective. Your planet will serve as a resource hub for our expanding empire. Those who prove useful will be treated well. Those who resist will be eliminated. Those who are simply worthless." She paused, and Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "Well, we have little patience for dead weight." The occupation began immediately. Humans were sorted into categories based on their skills and usefulness. Scientists, engineers, doctors, and skilled laborers were given special badges and comfortable housing. Artists, teachers, and other non-essential workers were assigned to labor camps. Everyone else was left to fend for themselves in the ruins of the old world. Marcus fell into that final category. When the Zephyrian assessment teams reached his shop, they glanced at his basic electronics repair skills and marked him as minimal utility. No badge, no special housing, no protection. He was nobody, just as he'd always been, but being nobody sometimes meant you could go places others couldn't. Marcus discovered this 3 weeks into the occupation when he was scavenging for food in the abandoned electronics district. Most shops had been stripped bare by other survivors, but Marcus knew hidden spots others missed. He was crawling through the back room of an old computer store when he heard voices speaking in the musical Zephyrian language. Peeking through a crack in the wall, Marcus saw something that made his heart race. 3 Zephyrian technicians were working on what looked like a massive communication array. The equipment was sleek and far beyond anything humans had created, but Marcus recognized the basic principles. It was a network hub, probably connecting this sector to their main command ship. What caught his attention, though, was how frustrated the technicians seemed. They kept pointing at various components, their voices rising in what sounded like argument. One of them repeatedly touched a specific panel, and each time lights would flash in an angry red pattern. Marcus had seen that kind of problem 1,000 times. A loose connection, probably caused by the rough landing. In human electronics, it would take 5 minutes to fix. But these advanced beings seemed baffled by such a simple issue. That's when the crazy idea hit him. Marcus waited until the technicians left for what appeared to be a break. Then, moving as quietly as possible, he slipped into the room. The alien equipment hummed with energy, and touching it could probably kill him. But Marcus had spent years working with electronics that others said couldn't be fixed. His hands moved almost automatically, finding the loose connection he'd spotted earlier. It was exactly what he'd thought. A simple connector had worked loose during landing. Marcus had the right tool in his pocket, a small magnetic screwdriver he'd kept when fleeing his shop. With careful precision, he tightened the connection and secured the loose component. The red lights immediately turned green. The angry buzzing sound stopped, replaced by a smooth, rhythmic humming. The communication array was working perfectly. Marcus was about to leave when he heard footsteps returning. Panic shot through him, but it was too late to run. The 3 technicians entered, saw him standing next to their now functioning equipment, and froze. For a long moment, nobody moved. Marcus expected to die. These were conquerors, and he was just a useless human who'd trespassed in their workspace. But then the lead technician did something unexpected. He laughed. It was a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, and it was followed by excited chatter between the three aliens. They examined their equipment, pointed at Marcus, and their body language shifted from suspicious to amazed. The lead technician approached Marcus slowly, his hands raised in what seemed like a peaceful gesture. Then he spoke in broken English. "You fix?" Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. The technician's large silver eyes widened. He turned to his companions and spoke rapidly in Zephyrian. Then he looked back at Marcus. "How you know fix?" "I'm an electronics repair technician," Marcus managed to say. It was just a loose connection. The aliens exchanged more excited chatter. The lead technician pulled out a device that looked like a cross between a tablet and a jewel. He touched it several times, then showed Marcus the screen. It displayed a simple diagram of another piece of equipment, with red indicators showing multiple problems. "You fix this too?" the technician asked hopefully. Marcus studied the diagram. It was more advanced than anything he'd ever seen, but the problems were familiar. Overheating, power distribution issues, probably some corroded connections. All things he'd fixed hundreds of times in different forms. "I think so," he said. The technician's expression grew excited. He touched his communicator and spoke rapidly to someone else. Within minutes, Marcus found himself being escorted through the Zephyrian compound, not as a prisoner, but as something entirely new. He was a useful human in a world where being useful meant survival. Marcus spent the next 2 weeks in what could only be described as alien tech heaven. The Zephyrians had converted a human university into their primary research facility. And Marcus found himself with his own workshop space, unlimited access to tools, and a steady stream of impossible problems to solve. The irony wasn't lost on him. For years, human bosses had treated his skills as worthless. Now aliens who could travel between stars were treating him like some kind of miracle worker. The truth was simpler than either species realized. Zephyrian technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also incredibly specialized. Their engineers were trained to work with perfect, factory-new equipment under ideal conditions. Earth's rough environment, electromagnetic interference from human technology, and the simple wear and tear of an active invasion were causing failures their specialists couldn't handle. But Marcus had spent years jury-rigging solutions for broken equipment in less than perfect conditions. Every problem the Zephyrians brought him was just a more advanced version of something he'd already fixed. His success rate was perfect, and word was spreading. That's how he ended up standing in the most luxurious room he'd ever seen, waiting to meet the one being he'd never expected to encounter face to face. Queen Lyraleigh's personal chambers aboard the mothership were a study in elegant functionality. Curved walls displayed real-time images of star systems, while holographic displays showed tactical information about the Zephyrian Empire's expansion efforts. The Queen herself sat behind a desk that seemed to be carved from a single piece of translucent crystal. She was even more impressive in person than on the broadcasts. Nearly 9 feet tall, her purple skin had an almost luminous quality, and her silver eyes seemed to look right through him. When she spoke, her voice carried that same musical quality he'd heard from other Zephyrians, but with an added weight of absolute authority. "Marcus Chen," she said, pronouncing his name with careful precision. "The human who fixes what cannot be fixed." "Your Majesty," Marcus replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I just understand basic electronic principles." "Basic principles," she repeated, amusement coloring her tone. "Tell me, Marcus Chen, with your basic principles, what do you think of our technology?" It was clearly a test, but Marcus had learned that honesty usually worked better than trying to be clever. "It's incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly rigid. Your engineers know how to build amazing things, but they don't know how to adapt when something goes wrong in an unexpected way." Several of the Queen's advisors made sounds of displeasure, but Lyraleigh held up a hand for silence. "Continue. Human technology is crude compared to yours, but we've had to develop workarounds for everything because nothing ever works perfectly. We're used to improvising, adapting, finding solutions with whatever tools we have. Your people are used to perfection, so when something breaks in an imperfect environment..." Marcus shrugged. "It's like having a master chef who can't figure out how to cook without a fully stocked kitchen." The Queen was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed, that wind chime sound he'd heard from the technicians. "A crude but accurate analogy. Tell me, what do you know of our expansion efforts?" Only what everyone knows. You're building an empire, taking over planets for their resources. Indeed, but empire building is more complex than conquest. Each world we claim must be integrated into our infrastructure, our communication networks, our supply chains. And each world presents unique challenges. Her expression grew thoughtful. We have encountered 17 different species in our expansion. Do you know how many have provided us with technological innovations? Marcus had no idea, so he remained silent. None, the Queen continued. Most species are either too primitive to offer anything useful, or so advanced that they resist integration. But you, Marcus Chen, you have solved more technical problems in 2 weeks than some of our specialists solve in months. And you did it with what you call basic principles. I just approach problems differently than your people do. Exactly. The Queen leaned forward slightly. I have a proposition for you. My empire is vast, but it is also fragile. Each new world we integrate creates new technical challenges, new points of failure. I need someone who can solve problems my people cannot even see. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. What kind of proposition? Become my personal technical advisor. Travel with my fleet as we expand the empire. Help us adapt our technology to work in any environment on any world with any species. In return, you will have resources beyond your imagination, protection under my personal authority, and the chance to work with technology that makes your wildest dreams seem primitive. The offer was incredible, but Marcus had learned to look for catches. And the cost? You would leave Earth permanently. Your loyalty would be to me and the Empire, not to your former species, and you would be alone among aliens, perhaps for the rest of your life. Marcus considered this. His life on Earth had been nothing special. No family, few friends, no career prospects. The Zephyrians were conquerors, but they weren't unnecessarily cruel to useful subjects, and the chance to work with technology that could change the galaxy. What about other humans, he asked. I'm not the only one who could help you. Perhaps not, but you are the first to prove your worth. Accept my offer, and I will consider extending similar opportunities to others of your species who demonstrate useful skills. That decided it. Marcus might have been nobody special on Earth, but he could become someone who helped his entire species find a place in this new reality. I accept, he said. The Queen's smile was radiant. Excellent. We depart tomorrow for the Andromeda system. 3 worlds there await integration into our empire, and each presents unique challenges. She gestured to one of her advisors. Commander Vex will provide you with quarters, equipment, and an introduction to our current technical difficulties. As Marcus was led from the Queen's presence, he realized his life had just changed in ways he couldn't even imagine. Yesterday he'd been a nobody fixing broken electronics. Now he was technical advisor to an alien queen, about to travel to distant stars. But the most important change was simpler than that. For the first time in his life, someone genuinely needed what he had to offer, and Marcus was determined not to disappoint her. The Andromeda system was Marcus's first glimpse of the true scope of the Zephyrian Empire. 3 inhabited worlds orbited a brilliant blue star, each presenting challenges that had the Queen's best engineers baffled. Kepler 442b was a water world, where constant storms interfered with communication arrays. Proxima 7 had electromagnetic fields so intense they fried most Zephyrian electronics within hours. And Titan-class mining station Omega 1 was an artificial world where the native species had somehow integrated biological components into their technology in ways that made no logical sense. Marcus had been aboard the Queen's flagship for 3 months, and he'd learned that Zephyrian military efficiency was both their greatest strength and their most critical weakness. They excelled at overwhelming force and perfect execution of tested strategies. But when faced with unexpected problems, their rigid thinking often made simple solutions invisible. The first test came at Kepler 442b. The Queen's fleet had conquered the aquatic civilization easily, but maintaining control was proving impossible. The planet's constant electrical storms, generated by the interaction between its 3 moons and metallic ocean, created electromagnetic pulses that knocked out Zephyrian communication networks within days of installation. The storms are too unpredictable, Commander Vex explained as they stood in the flagship's command center, watching real-time feeds of yet another communication array being fried by lightning. Our shielding cannot adapt to the rapid frequency changes. Marcus studied the data streaming across the holographic displays. The Zephyrian approach was to try to block the electromagnetic interference entirely, using advanced shielding that could deflect most forms of energy. It was elegant, sophisticated, and completely wrong for this environment. "You're fighting the storms," Marcus said. "What if we worked with them instead?" "Explain," the Queen commanded from her central throne. "Lightning rods," Marcus said simply. "Instead of trying to block the electrical energy, we channel it. Use the storm's own power to run the communication systems and design the arrays to actually benefit from electromagnetic pulses instead of being destroyed by them." The engineering team exchanged skeptical glances. Commander Vex spoke carefully. "Marcus, our communication systems require precise energy inputs. Lightning is chaotic, unpredictable. It would destroy the delicate components. Not if we build buffers and converters, turn chaos into controlled power." Marcus pulled up a holographic workstation and began sketching modifications. "Look, every lightning strike follows the path of least resistance. We create multiple paths, funnel the energy through conversion matrices, store the excess in buffer cells, and use it to boost signal strength during calm periods." What Marcus was proposing was essentially turning the entire communication network into a massive lightning rod system, something any human engineer would recognize as a scaled-up version of basic electrical protection. But to the Zephyrians, who were used to perfect, stable power sources, the idea of deliberately inviting chaotic energy into their systems seemed insane. "The risk is enormous," Vex protested. "If the buffers fail, the entire network could be destroyed in seconds. And if we keep doing what we're doing, the network gets destroyed every few days anyway," Marcus pointed out. "At least this way, we might get a system that actually works." The Queen considered this for a long moment. "Implement his design on a test array," she finally decided. "If it fails, we lose nothing we haven't lost already. If it succeeds..." It took 2 weeks to modify a single communication station with Marcus's lightning channeling design. The Zephyrian engineers worked reluctantly, clearly expecting the entire system to explode the moment it was activated. Marcus supervised every connection, explaining principles that seemed elementary to him but revolutionary to them. The test came during a massive storm that lit up half the planet's night side. Traditional Zephyrian arrays had already failed across the water world. But Marcus's modified station not only survived the electrical bombardment, it actually grew stronger as the storm intensified. "Impossible," breathed the chief engineer as power readings soared beyond anything they'd ever recorded. "The communication range is extending beyond planetary atmosphere. Signal strength is increasing with each lightning strike." "It's not impossible," Marcus said, watching his jury-rigged human engineering principles integrated with alien technology create something neither species could have built alone. "It's just different thinking." Within a month, every communication array on Kepler 442b had been retrofitted with Marcus's storm channeling design. The planet that had been impossible to control became the most reliably connected world in the Zephyrian Empire. Signal strength was so powerful that it could punch through interference that blocked communication to other star systems. But the real breakthrough came when Marcus realized the implications of what they'd built. "Your Majesty, we haven't just solved a communication problem. We've created a strategic advantage." "How so?" Marcus called up a star map of the Empire. "Every military operation depends on communication and coordination. Most species try to disrupt enemy communications during conflicts. But what if you had a communication network that became stronger under attack? What if electromagnetic weapons and jamming attempts actually boosted your signal strength instead of blocking it?" The Queen's silver eyes widened with understanding. "Any species that tried to jam our communications would only make us more powerful." "Exactly. And the storm channeling principle could be adapted to other forms of energy. Particle beams, plasma bursts, even kinetic impacts could potentially be converted into power sources instead of weapons against us." Commander Vex looked stunned. "Marcus, you're describing technology that could make our fleets nearly invulnerable." "I'm describing basic energy redirection principles that humans use for lightning protection," applied to more advanced systems, Marcus corrected. The concepts aren't new. They're just being used in ways your people never considered. That night, as the fleet prepared to move to Proxima 7, Queen Lirelai summoned Marcus to her private chambers. The room's holographic displays now showed the storm-racked water world below, with communication lines glowing in steady, powerful streams across its surface. "Marcus Chen," she said, "3 months ago, you were considered worthless by your own species. Today, you have given me a military advantage that could change the balance of power in this galaxy. Tell me, what do you see when you look at my empire?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I see incredible power and sophistication, but also rigidity. Your people are amazing at perfecting known solutions, but they struggle with adaptation. Every new challenge requires new thinking, and that's where humans might be able to help." "Indeed. And what do you see for yourself in this empire?" "Honestly, I never imagined having this kind of purpose. On Earth, I was nobody. Here, I'm helping build something that could last for centuries. It's not the future I expected, but it's better than anything I dared to hope for." The Queen smiled that radiant smile. "Then let us see what other miracles your worthless human ingenuity can create. Proxima 7 awaits, and its electromagnetic fields are far more challenging than simple storms." Marcus nodded, already thinking about the technical reports he'd read about their next destination. The problem seemed impossible by Zephyrian standards, but he was beginning to understand that impossible often just meant requiring a different approach than usual. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was finding different approaches when the usual ones didn't work. Proxima 7 was a hellscape that made Kepler 442b look like a peaceful vacation spot. The planet's core was rich in exotic metals that generated electromagnetic fields so powerful they could be seen from space as shimmering aurora curtains that never stopped dancing across the atmosphere. Previous Zephyrian surveys had shown the world contained enough rare minerals to power the Empire's expansion for centuries, but actually extracting them seemed impossible. "We have lost 17 mining operations," Commander Vex reported as the fleet took position in orbit. "The electromagnetic interference is so intense that our equipment fails within hours. Shielded vehicles break down. Communication is impossible beyond line of sight. Even our most hardened electronics cannot survive the environment." Marcus studied the sensor data from the planet below. The electromagnetic readings were unlike anything he'd ever seen, but the patterns were familiar in a strange way. "It looks almost like a massive version of an old Earth phenomenon. Have you tried treating it like electromagnetic pulse interference instead of a constant field? The energy levels are far beyond any pulse-based system," the chief engineer objected. "This is a continuous planet-wide electromagnetic storm." "But it's not really continuous," Marcus said, highlighting specific patterns in the data stream. "Look at these fluctuations. There's a rhythm to it like a heartbeat. The fields pulse stronger and weaker in cycles. If we can map the cycles..." It took 3 weeks of observation to understand Proxima 7's electromagnetic patterns. The planet's 3 magnetic poles created interference waves that surged and ebbed in predictable patterns, like ocean tides controlled by multiple moons. During peak interference, nothing electronic could function. But during the brief lulls between waves, there were windows of opportunity. The Zephyrian engineers were skeptical of Marcus's proposed solution. "You want us to time our entire mining operation to work only during electromagnetic lulls that last at most 17 minutes? "Not just work during the lulls," Marcus explained, sketching out his design on the holographic workstation. "Store energy during the peaks, release it during the lulls. Turn the electromagnetic interference into our power source." It was the lightning rod principle again, but scaled up to planetary levels. Marcus proposed building mining equipment that would actually absorb electromagnetic energy during peak periods, store it in specialized capacitor arrays, then use that stored power during the lull periods to operate at superhuman efficiency. The storage requirements would be enormous, Vex pointed out, and the stress on the equipment. "That's where human engineering philosophy comes in," Marcus said. "Instead of building one massive, perfect system that has to work flawlessly, we build hundreds of smaller, simpler systems designed to break down and be easily replaced." The Zephyrians were horrified by this concept. Their engineering culture emphasized perfection, durability, and systems that could operate for decades without maintenance. Marcus was proposing the opposite: cheap, disposable, easily replaceable equipment designed to be destroyed and rebuilt constantly. "It is wasteful," the chief engineer protested. "Inefficient, crude. It's adaptable," Marcus countered. "Your perfect systems can't handle this environment. My crude systems can work anywhere because they're designed to be rebuilt when conditions change." Queen Lyreley had been listening to the debate with growing interest. "Show me," she commanded. Marcus's prototype was embarrassingly simple by Zephyrian standards. Instead of elegant, integrated mining equipment, he built modular units that looked like mechanical Lego blocks. Each unit was designed to perform one simple function: extract ore, process material, store energy, or transport goods. The units could be combined in different configurations depending on conditions, and when the electromagnetic pulses destroyed some components, the surviving units would automatically reconfigure to maintain operations. "It looks primitive," Commander Vex observed as the first test units were deployed to the planet's surface. "It looks like it was built by someone who expects things to break," Marcus replied. The first electromagnetic pulse fried 30% of the test equipment instantly. Traditional Zephyrian mining gear would have been completely destroyed. But Marcus's modular units simply rerouted their connections around the damaged components and continued working at reduced efficiency. The second pulse destroyed different components, but again the system adapted. By the end of the first day, 60% of the original units were destroyed, but the remaining 40% had automatically reorganized into a configuration that was actually more efficient than the original setup. "Impossible," breathed the chief engineer as mining output data streamed to the flagship. "The efficiency is increasing as equipment is destroyed." "It's not impossible," Marcus said with growing confidence. "It's evolutionary engineering. The system is learning which configurations work best in this environment and automatically adapting toward more successful designs." Within 2 months, Proxima 7 went from impossible to extract to the most productive mining operation in the Zephyrian Empire. The modular systems had evolved through hundreds of iterations, creating mining configurations that no engineer could have designed, but that worked perfectly in the planet's harsh environment. More importantly, the success caught the attention of other species within the Empire. The Altarians, a race of crystalline beings who had served the Zephyrians reluctantly since their conquest, sent a delegation to study the new mining techniques. "We have observed your methods," their representative, a being whose body looked like animated mineral formations, communicated through harmonic vibrations. "Your approach resonates with our understanding of adaptive growth. Perhaps there are ways our peoples might collaborate." That conversation led to the breakthrough Marcus hadn't expected. The Altarians understood crystal-based technology in ways that complemented his adaptive engineering principles. Working together, they developed hybrid systems that combined Zephyrian sophistication, human adaptability, and Altarian organic growth patterns. "Marcus," Queen Lyreley said after reviewing reports on the three-way collaboration, "you have done more than solve technical problems. You have shown my empire how to learn from conquered species instead of simply exploiting them. I just applied basic problem-solving principles. Your Majesty, you have applied human problem-solving principles to alien challenges, but more than that, you have created a framework for other species to contribute their own knowledge." The Queen paused thoughtfully. "Tell me, what do you know about the Outer Rim territories?" "Only that they're giving you trouble. 17 systems that refuse to surrender despite being outgunned." "Indeed. They resist because they believe integration into the Empire means the destruction of their cultures, their knowledge, their ways of life. But what if integration meant something different? What if it meant combining the best of multiple species to create something stronger than any could achieve alone?" Marcus was beginning to see where this was leading. "You want to offer them partnership instead of conquest. I want to offer them the chance to become essential to the Empire's success, as you have become essential to mine." The Queen's smile was brilliant. "But first we must prove this approach works on a larger scale. The artificial world of Titan-class mining station Omega-1 awaits, and its inhabitants have created technology that should be impossible by any known principles." "What kind of impossible?" "They have somehow integrated living tissue into their mechanical systems. Biological components that grow, adapt, and repair themselves. Technology that is part machine, part organism, Our scientists cannot even understand how it functions, much less how to use it. Marcus felt excitement building. A completely new form of technology that combined biology with engineering. It sounded like the ultimate challenge for someone who specialized in finding unconventional solutions to impossible problems. When do we leave for Omega-1? Tomorrow, the Queen replied. And Marcus? This time you will not be going as my technical advisor alone. You will be going as my official representative, with authority to negotiate partnerships on behalf of the Empire. Marcus stared at her in shock. Your Majesty, I'm not a diplomat. I'm just an electronics repairman who got lucky. You are the human who taught my empire to see strength in adaptation, value in unconventional thinking, and power in collaboration. You are exactly what a diplomat should be. Her expression grew serious. Besides, the Omega-1 inhabitants have refused all communication with Zephyrian officials. They consider us too rigid, too mechanical in our thinking. Perhaps they will respond better to someone whose approach is more organic. The artificial world of Omega-1 was unlike anything Marcus had imagined. From orbit, it looked like a massive space station, but closer inspection revealed something far more extraordinary. The entire structure seemed to breathe. Metal surfaces rippled like skin. Energy conduits pulsed like blood vessels, and sensor arrays moved with the fluid grace of living creatures tracking their surroundings. The biosynthetics have been here for over 3,000 years, Commander Vex explained as their shuttle approached the station's docking bay. They were originally a spacefaring species that began integrating cybernetic implants for space travel. Over centuries, the line between biology and technology disappeared entirely. And they built this entire world? Grew it, actually. The station started as a small outpost and has been continuously expanding, adding new sections as their population increases. Every part of it is alive in some sense, capable of self-repair, adaptation, even evolution. Marcus watched in fascination as the docking bay's entrance dilated like an iris to accommodate their shuttle. Bioluminescent patterns rippled across the walls in what might have been a greeting or a warning, or simply the station's way of processing their arrival. The biosynthetic delegation that met them was both beautiful and unsettling. They retained humanoid shapes, but their bodies were seamless blends of flesh and technology. Circuit patterns glowed beneath translucent skin. Fiber optic nerves pulsed with data streams, and their eyes were organic cameras that tracked movement with mechanical precision. Their leader introduced herself as Prime Synthesis Kayla, her voice emerging from speakers embedded in her throat while her natural vocal cords handled emotional undertones. We agreed to meet with you only because our sensors detect biological patterns in your ship systems that match no known Zephyrian technology. Are you responsible for these innovations? I helped develop some adaptive technologies that incorporate organic principles, Marcus replied carefully, though nothing as sophisticated as what you've achieved here. Show me, Kayla commanded. Marcus activated a portable demonstration unit he'd brought specifically for this meeting. It was one of his modular mining devices, modified with Altarian crystal growth techniques. As Kayla watched, the device automatically reconfigured itself to adapt to the station's unique energy signatures, growing new connections and modifying existing ones in real time. Crude, Kayla observed, but her tone held interest rather than dismissal. Primitive adaptation protocols. But she paused as the device began incorporating elements from the station's own biometal structure, creating hybrid connections that seemed to strengthen both systems. Unexpected creativity in the integration approach. It's designed to learn from and work with whatever environment it encounters, Marcus explained. Instead of imposing predetermined solutions, it finds ways to collaborate with existing systems. Collaboration, Kayla repeated, the concept seeming to resonate with her. The Zephyrians demanded our surrender. They threatened to sterilize our station if we did not submit to their rigid technological standards. They showed no interest in understanding what we have built here. That's why I'm here instead of them. Queen Lyra Lai wants to explore partnership possibilities rather than conquest. Kayla's cybernetic eye patterns shifted to what Marcus was learning to recognize as surprise. The conqueror queen wishes to partner with those she considers inferior. She's beginning to understand that different approaches to technology can strengthen the empire instead of weakening it. Your biotechnological integration could revolutionize everything from medicine to space construction to planetary adaptation. And in return, access to Zephyrian resources, protection from external threats, and the chance to share your innovations across hundreds of worlds instead of being isolated on one station. Kayla was silent for long moments, her internal processors apparently running complex calculations. Finally, she gestured for Marcus to follow her deeper into the station. Come. If the Empire truly wishes partnership rather than domination, you must understand what we are offering. The tour that followed changed Marcus's understanding of what technology could become. The biosynthetics had created a civilization where the boundary between living organism and mechanical device had completely disappeared. Walls grew from seeds, computer systems evolved through natural selection, and manufacturing was accomplished through guided biological processes that turned raw materials into finished products as naturally as trees grew fruit. We begin with basic organic templates, Kayla explained as they watched a new section of the station literally growing from carefully planted biotechnological seeds. Neural networks that can process information, muscular structures that can manipulate matter, skeletal frameworks that can bear weight. Then we guide their evolution toward specific technological functions. It's incredible, Marcus said honestly. But how do you maintain quality control? How do you ensure the systems develop the way you want them to? We don't, entirely. Evolution follows its own path, often finding solutions we never considered. The key is creating environments that encourage useful development while discouraging harmful mutations. Kayla gestured to a wall where circuit patterns were visibly shifting. This communication network has been evolving for 200 years. It now processes information in ways we couldn't have designed, with efficiency levels that exceed our original specifications. Marcus recognized the principle immediately. It was the same evolutionary engineering approach he'd used on Proxima 7, but taken to its ultimate conclusion. Instead of building systems that adapted to their environment, the biosynthetics had created systems that evolved into whatever their environment needed. The applications are limitless, he said, mind racing with possibilities. Spacecraft that grow stronger in vacuum conditions, planetary habitats that adapt to local atmospheres, communication networks that evolve to work with whatever species uses them. Precisely. But such technology requires understanding of both biological and technological principles. The Zephyrians excel at technology, but understand nothing of organic processes. We excel at biointegration but lack their resources and manufacturing capabilities. That's where partnership becomes powerful, Marcus said. Combined capabilities that neither species could achieve alone. Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm that sounded like a cross between a siren and a bird call. Kayla's expression immediately shifted to concern as information streamed across her cybernetic implants. What's wrong? Marcus asked. Long-range sensors detect a massive fleet approaching our system. Military configuration, unknown species. They will arrive within days. Marcus felt cold dread settle in his stomach. How massive? Preliminary estimates suggest over 300 warships, far larger than any force the Zephyrian Empire has encountered. Kayla turned to him urgently. If your queen truly wishes partnership, now would be an ideal time to prove it. Marcus activated his communication device, connecting directly to Queen Lirelai's flagship. When her image appeared on the holographic display, her expression was grim. Marcus, we have detected the approaching fleet. Our analysis suggests they are void hunters, a species we have encountered only in the most disturbing intelligence reports. They do not conquer worlds. They consume them entirely, leaving nothing but empty space. Can the Empire stop them? Not alone. Our fleet in this system represents only a small fraction of our total military strength. By the time reinforcements could arrive, the Void Hunters would have consumed everything in this sector. The Queen paused. However, if the biosynthetics were to ally with us immediately, combining their adaptive technology with our military strength. Marcus looked at Kayla, whose cybernetic implants were processing the conversation in real time. Prime synthesis, the Empire needs your help. In return, you would receive full partnership status, technological exchange programs, and protection across all Imperial territories. And if we refuse? Then we all die when the Void Hunters arrive, Marcus said bluntly. But if we work together, we might be able to create something they can't consume. Kayla's decision-making process was visible through her translucent skin as biological neural networks and cybernetic processors worked in harmony. When she spoke, her voice carried absolute certainty. Prime Synthesis Omega-1 accepts partnership with the Zephyrian Empire. What do you need from us? Marcus smiled despite the approaching danger. Everything you've got. It's time to find out what happens when adaptive engineering meets evolutionary biotechnology, meets Zephyrian military precision. And if our combined technologies are still insufficient? Then we improvise. Humans are very good at that. The next 72 hours transformed the Omega-1 system into something the galaxy had never seen before. 3 different technological philosophies, merged in desperate creativity as the Void Hunter fleet approached like a hungry darkness between the stars. Marcus found himself at the center of the most ambitious engineering project in recorded history. Zephyrian manufacturing capabilities, biosynthetic evolutionary technology, and human adaptive principles combined to create defensive systems that shouldn't have been possible. The Void Hunters consume matter by converting it to energy. Queen Lirelai explained as the 3 species worked frantically in the station's newly expanded war room. Traditional shields are useless because they simply provide more material to be consumed. Weapons are ineffective because the hunters absorb the energy of attacks and become stronger. But they've never encountered adaptive biotechnology. Prime Synthesis, Kayla added, her organic neural networks interfacing directly with Zephyrian tactical computers. Every previous species they've consumed used static defenses. Predictable technology that follows consistent patterns. So we build defenses that evolve faster than they can adapt to consume them, Marcus said, his mind racing through possibilities. Not static shields, but living barriers that change constantly. Not fixed weapons, but adaptive systems that learn from each encounter. The solution they developed defied every conventional approach to space warfare. Instead of traditional defensive satellites, they grew biomechanical organisms that could survive in vacuum and reproduce rapidly. Each organism was part biological entity, part technological device, capable of evolution and adaptation in real time. It's insane, Commander Vex observed as the first generation of defensive organisms spread throughout the system. We're essentially creating an artificial ecosystem in space. It's beautiful, Kayla countered as bioluminescent organisms began forming complex patterns across the void. Watch how they're already adapting to the local gravitational fields, using stellar radiation for energy, organizing into collaborative networks. Marcus watched the tactical displays with growing excitement and terror. The biomechanical defense network was evolving beyond anything they'd planned, creating new organizational structures and capabilities with each generation. Some organisms had developed the ability to manipulate gravity fields. Others were generating energy discharges that could power small cities. A few had begun reproducing in ways that created entirely new subspecies. The network is exceeding all projected capabilities, reported the chief engineer. Evolution is occurring at rates that should be impossible. New defensive strategies are emerging faster than our computers can track them. That's the point, Marcus said. When the Void Hunters arrive, they'll encounter a defense system that's literally evolving new countermeasures in real time. Every attack they make will teach our organisms new ways to resist consumption. The Void Hunter fleet arrived exactly when predicted, and their first assault confirmed every terrible report about their capabilities. Their ships were less vessels than living voids, dark absences in space that consumed light, matter, and energy indiscriminately. Traditional matter simply vanished when they passed, converted to fuel for their continued expansion. But when the Void Hunters encountered the biomechanical defense network, something unprecedented happened. Instead of being consumed, the defensive organisms began adapting to the consumption process itself. Impossible, breathed Commander Vex as sensor data streamed across the war room displays. The organisms are learning to resist the conversion process. Some of them are actually absorbing the Void Hunters' energy attacks and using them for rapid reproduction. Marcus watched in amazement as the space battle unfolded like nothing in military history. Each Void Hunter attack triggered evolutionary responses in the defensive organisms. Some developed resistance to matter conversion. Others learned to redirect consumption energy back at their attackers. A few began reproducing so rapidly that they overwhelmed the hunter's consumption rate entirely. The hunters are adapting too, Kayla warned as the enemy fleet began changing tactics. They're learning from our defenses, developing new consumption methods. Good, Marcus said, surprising everyone. That means we're in an evolutionary arms race. And evolutionary arms races have a winner determined by who can adapt faster. The battle that followed lasted 6 days and revolutionized galactic warfare. The Void Hunters, accustomed to consuming static defenses, found themselves facing an ecosystem that grew stronger and more diverse with every attack. Each new consumption technique they developed was met by new resistance strategies from the biomechanical organisms. By the 3rd day, some organisms had evolved beyond simple defense to active predation, developing the ability to consume Void Hunter ships and convert their matter into new defensive structures. By the 5th day, the battle had reversed entirely, with the biomechanical ecosystem pursuing the retreating Void Hunters through space. On the 6th day, the last Void Hunter ship was consumed by organisms that had evolved specifically to prey on matter conversion entities. The threat that had terrified the galaxy for millennia had been defeated by a defense system that turned evolution itself into a weapon. It's over, Queen Lirelei announced as the biomechanical organisms settled into stable patrol patterns around the system. The Void Hunters are extinct, and we have created a defensive technology that makes our empire virtually invincible. But Marcus was looking at the broader implications. The biomechanical organisms were still evolving, developing new capabilities every day. Some were beginning to show signs of intelligence. Others were establishing communication networks that spanned multiple star systems. A few had developed the ability to create new types of matter that hadn't existed before. Your Majesty, Marcus said carefully, I think we've created more than a defensive system. We've created a new form of life that could reshape the entire galaxy. Queen Lirelei studied the data streaming from the evolved organisms with growing wonder. Marcus Chen, when I first met you, you were considered worthless by your own species. Today, you have given me not just an empire, but the tools to create an entirely new form of galactic civilization. We all did this together, Marcus replied. Human adaptability, Zephyrian precision, biosynthetic evolution. None of us could have achieved this alone. Indeed. And that collaboration model will define how this empire grows. No more conquest for its own sake. No more forcing other species into rigid compliance. The Queen's smile was radiant as she looked out at the biomechanical organisms dancing between the stars. From now on, the Zephyrian Empire will grow by partnership, by combining the best of every species we encounter. What about Earth? Marcus asked. My people are still adjusting to occupation. Earth will become the first official partner world in the new empire structure. Humans will maintain their own government, while contributing their problem-solving abilities to galactic challenges. And you, Marcus Chen, will serve as my ambassador to coordinate these partnerships. Marcus looked out at the impossible organisms that had been born from desperate collaboration between 3 very different species. He thought about his old life fixing broken electronics in a forgotten shop, and about the galaxy-spanning responsibilities that had somehow become his destiny. From useless to unstoppable, he said quietly. Indeed, though I suspect you were never truly useless. Perhaps your species simply needed the right challenges to reveal your true potential. As the biomechanical organisms continued their eternal dance through the void, Marcus realized that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was full of species with unique capabilities, unique perspectives, unique solutions to problems that no one species could solve alone, and somehow the nobody from Earth had become the bridge that would help them all discover what they could achieve together. The future was going to be very interesting indeed.